Welcome to the Emblazers, the show for B2B revenue leaders igniting revenue. I'm your host, Amanda, and I'm joined by my favorite co-host. Some might call him the father of forecasting, Tim Reister. Tim, it's good to see you, always.
Good to see you. I'm as good at that as I am at predicting the weather here in Wisconsin, I guess.
You know, being a weather person, with no shade to any weather person who may be listening to this show, it's the best job security job you could possibly have. You can never really go wrong. Partly sunny, partly cloudy. Am I right?
Yeah, but that's for that big slice of audience that are weather people.
Well, for those who are not weather folks listening, I am so excited. We're having Tony Pante join us today from SAP. He leads the global CSM team and doing so much more that we're excited to hear what he's doing this year. Tim, I'm curious, what are you most excited to hear about what Tony's been up to?
Well, we may have some CS leaders listening to this podcast because they saw the title. I'm most interested in the revenue leaders who have joined. CS is one of those somewhat neglected, I feel, parts of the revenue team. When you think of the whole commercial team and who is having impact on the number and growth for many companies, it's existing customer retention and expansion. And the discipline of keeping and growing customers is one that it's a discipline and a muscle that companies are having to work on developing. And the CS function, which was kind of like customer support and service before, is now more about retention and growth, and really a pivotal part of the commercial team. And Tony is kind of a godfather of this thing. And folks are going to hear a lot of interesting bits about where CS was, where it is today, and where it's going. So you're going to enjoy this if you're ready to see CS be a big part of your revenue growth.
Welcome to the Emblazers show, where B2B leaders are driving and igniting revenue. I'm so excited to have Tony Pante with us today. He is the Senior Vice President and Global Leader, Business Suite CSM for SAP, where he is focused on helping customers drive value from cloud solutions. He's got over 25 years of experience driving change across both small and big organizations, extensive experiences and understatement on scaling customer success teams across the globe. I'm so excited to have Tony here today. My first question to you, Tony, you have a very long title and it's a recent new one. Tell us more. What are you supporting at SAP now?
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Tim. Great to spend some time with you. As a company, we're really pushing our technology towards a business suite approach, which covers almost all the buying centers, leveraging business AI to drive efficiencies for businesses. So it's a new branding in terms of where the company's going and how we're going. The core role of what I have is still the same, though. It's about customer success management, right? How do we drive adoption and consumption of our software through our customer success managers? And this is both from a high touch perspective, that one-to-one type relationships, bigger relationships with bigger customers, often traveling, right, in-person type of activity, all the way down to a team that I help build and scale, a digital customer success manager where we're covering tons of customers, but with digital modalities. So it's still looking at the whole CSM arena of people and making sure that we're 100% focused on driving business outcomes for our customers using the software that they purchase.
Yeah, what I'm excited about,
busy at all.
Well, I'm excited about just trying to say that title is,
You'll see branding coming soon, right? And we're all still, the CSM function still stays the same, but big push towards a suite of products and as much as we can leverage business AI embedded in the software to get more efficient. And then our CSMs will help drive utilization, adoption, and value from the platform.
So I'm just excited for the Emblazers show, which we talk about being for revenue leaders, that we're talking about CS, and in the same breath as revenue leadership. You've been, I'll say, a pioneer. Doesn't mean you're old, just means you've been at it a while. In the area of CS, coming from a traditional revenue side to the CS side, talk to us about the evolution of CS and its role in revenue impact versus maybe how some people think of it when they think of the term customer support, now morphing to customer success.
Yeah.
Maybe talk some dollars and cents for us how that's supposed to play out.
Yeah, it fundamentally comes down to how do you help drive value for customers, right? And that's really what we're passionate about, what we're trying to do. And you can see SAP make a significant investment in resources, technology, people to make sure customers, they spend a lot on software. Well, specifically right now, when you think about moving into the cloud, you need to constantly show business value, or it's pretty easy for a customer to say, hey, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to move to someplace else. So as we've made as much discipline and focus on building a robust sales process, and I think we have probably the best sales organization on the planet that sells business software, rigorous processes, experts, smart people that are passionate about engaging with customers, we're bringing that same mindset, skill set towards the value and the business value that gets created from the software, right? And you got to do that through standard processes, engaging with customers, being passionate about driving the ultimate business value in partnership with selling the software. So it's a combination of both. I think you're starting to see a bigger focus, particularly in post-sales and customer success, because it is easy to pivot, if you will, from one software product to another product if you're not seeing the value, right? Different than maybe 10, 15 years ago when it was an on-prem software and you bought it and you stuck with it for a while. These solutions are fairly easy to implement now. And if you're not seeing business value, people are going to leave and they're going to move to someplace else. So as a company, we're making a big investment to make sure that we're successfully deployed. And then more importantly, we're reaching the objectives of what customers want and driving that business value.
Yeah, the customer experience, when all products, if they're easy to switch, that means they're very similar, right? You can't hardly tell the product apart anymore. I'm sure that SAPs are superior, but the idea that customers don't always perceive the difference, the experience, we see this in the data that the client experience far outweighs what they believe to be product superiority in terms of buying and staying. And that's, I think, what I hear you talking about.
100%. It's a big thing that we drive into some of the training with our team. If we have a defined implementation plan for customers, so they know what they're going to go through. We deploy software. That's what we do. Customers don't, right? But we have a framework and a methodology to make sure that they're successful. And you find with customers, if they have a defined implementation plan, a really strong partner with delivery dates and an enablement plan, and a strong business case, the realization of that value is an order of magnitudes higher than if you don't have that. So there is a scripted process that you can go through to actually drive the business value. And as we stick to it and we train our CSMs to understand the frameworks and methodologies and to be there to support customers, to be there to help them through the process, we should be the experts, us and our partners, in terms of driving value from our software. That's what we do. Just need to make sure that we're educating our customers and supporting them through the process.
Tony, this is just so incredible, like the work that you just shared. And one of the things that comes to my mind as you're sharing how you've been able to scale this is discipline. I'm curious though, from the internal side of things, what kind of initiatives, programs do you have to train, recognize, and motivate your CS teams?
Yeah, really, probably the most important question, because you're going to have technology, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute in terms of how AI and everything else transforms business process, and it does. My point of view, though, and I think the bigger focus is how do you make sure that you select the right people, number one, with the right mindset to support customers. Then number two, you got to train, retrain, and retrain. We have a significant investment in training around product, training around business value and realizing business value, training around process, training around skills to communicate and educate. Literally, when we look to hire people, and I do this with my leaders as well, we're looking for a motivated person with a growth mindset. And just talked to several of our teammates this year. You have to want to learn daily. Our software is changing. The environment that we sell within is changing. The techniques that you can leverage and use are changing all of the time, right? And we're moving at such a fast speed of change. You need to actually physically put within your calendar multiple hours of enablement and training and coaching, right? To make sure that you're getting better and you're figuring out how to support customers through different things. So that's important. We have tailored curriculum around product and around process and skills that we take everybody through and we certify everybody through. And I did talk about the point of coaching. When I think about my digital team, we're sitting in centers around the world. So you have the opportunity hourly to either listen to or to coach or inspire some of the younger talent that we have working in our digital organization. So they're building that mindset and trust and enablement all of the time. As you get into some of our larger customers and maybe a bit more of our experienced SCSMs, it's a different way to coach, but the focus is still on weekly huddles in terms of what's working and not working around a product or a technique. It is such a opportunity now. Honestly, if you're not learning, and I say this to every single one of my teams, if you're not learning, we're going to fall behind, right? And we're not going to be able to help support our customers. So you have to have that kind of growth mindset to learn and develop in order to be successful in customer success. And then what we do in our compensation plans, right? There's a component that's tied to certification and development. Definitely a component around customer success, right? And the customer performance and renewal. So you have those components in there, but there's a very strong people component in terms of learning and development, a certification, thought leadership that we compensate our teams on.
It's really refreshing to hear you share this as a large company, that you have such this emphasis on, I like to call it hashtag always learning, right? So having that growth mindset, like you said. Tim and I recently interviewed Rocky Boria, and we had sort of a similar question we asked her. She's done tremendous work scaling globally, a similar team. And she shared that the folks that she enjoys hiring the most are non-traditional sales folks. Mm-hmm. I'm curious on your end, is that sort of a similar approach, or what are maybe some specific skill sets you're looking outside of just a growth mindset?
Yeah, I'm smiling because as we go through the interview process, we're actually looking for the most diverse in terms of types of backgrounds. From a customer success perspective, we're usually not hiring salespeople. Right? For sales folks that are passionate about the quota and driving quota, we're really looking for the individual that wants to help solve problems and is passionate about a customer. So we've got a couple folks from the hospitality industries, folks that have worked at restaurants and other areas where they're used to engaging with customers and learning. So it is a bit of a different mindset when you think about helping customers through the challenging parts of deploying the software. It's very different than taking someone through a sales cycle, right? Where you're talking about possibilities. Now you've got to realize that possibility. And on the rare occasions that software doesn't work, customers aren't necessarily happy. Who are they talking to? They're coming back to their customer service rep, right? So the CSM. So it's a really important to understand, how to ask the right questions, how to be there during crises, how to make sure that you've got that service mindset. Very, very different, I think, different than if you're looking to drive the initial sale. So we're actually tailoring our recruiting towards more of a different type of background that kind of promotes the service industry.
Okay, so my final question is, I know Tim is itching over there to talk technology. So very important question. So I hear you hire hospitality folks. That's my background. Would you hire a hospitality major versus a journalism major? Asking for a friend here that may or may not be my co-host.
Anybody that loves to communicate, that is passionate about helping people, those are the two criteria, right? And we use our airport test. Can I spend 2 hours stuck in an airport with this person and have a good, thoughtful conversation and a likable conversation? Because we're going to coach you up. We're going to coach you. You're going to go through development cycles. It's, can you think on your feet? Are you passionate about helping people? Independent of where folks come from. And then journalists, you got to write a little bit. And you got to do some research, right? So there is some element to bringing
curiosity. Journalists are curious. They ask good questions. They clarify things out of confusion. Come on. There's a skill set.
Absolutely.
I think it's fair to say Tim and I would both be in the running for the role, but Tim might have an added advantage.
I want to be on Tony's team. I love his approach to it, his attitude. Mm-hmm. And but it's a big job. What I hear is like, oh, you got to be able to service the customer if there's a problem. Oh, you got to be able to do change management, and you have to put an implementation plan together and enable it. And manage adoption and track all that, and hopefully business impact and results. That's a big job. And now maybe even tie a little bit to revenue. What's the retention rate? We hear that companies are also having CS people pass leads. So help me understand now that sort of revenue component of CS. Now that we understand the success part of it, there's the revenue piece. And then I'll come back to technology.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a logical piece. We have this debate all the time. We're trying not to necessarily set a specific quota for a customer service rep because you want to be 100% laser focused on the business outcomes. And ultimately, you drive the business outcomes and you drive usage, you're going to drive renewals. That's how it happens. It's a lagging indicator. But as you build those trusted relationships, you're going to get upsell, cross-sell opportunity. It happens as part of the relationships. Who better than a trusted advisor helping with an implementation, helping driving business value for then a customer to say, hey, I need help with my HR system. Hey, I need help with my procurement system. So it's a logical progression. What we're trying not to do, though, is get them too focused on quota, right? And then more focused on driving business outcomes and doing those outcomes. You're going to identify those opportunities. We'll take those opportunities typically from an MBO perspective, right? So I'll have part of compensation tied to the pipeline that's either identified and closed, but then the actual activity of driving that transaction will go back to either a pipeline development person or a salesperson to actually drive the relationship forward or drive that transaction forward. So you still need to be mindful of it because it is part of success, but trying to not lead the person too much to say, hey, I got to think about how do I build pipeline all the time.
For sure. And now with all that on the plate, now we can talk about technology because there's just no way you could do this as a human without a little boost from technology. Where specifically are you applying technology, AI, or whatever other sort of support mechanism so a CS person can actually do this big job?
Yeah, it's a great question. We started with making sure we had defined processes from a customer experience. What is the experience that we want to help lead our customers through? And then how do you make sure that we define those processes and then clear roles and responsibilities? We spent quite a bit of time doing that either from a high touch perspective, a larger customer, or doing it at scale. We started with quite a bit of technology over the last couple of years where we've got a platform that we've been using to manage customer success. We've got a lot of self-service databases and knowledge bases that help bring content together. We did a lot with starting to test products like Synthesia that helps you translate into video. So we've been using a lot of that over the last couple of years. What I'm wickedly, really, really excited about, two things. We're pivoting to a new customer success platform, a product called Gainsight, and we're getting ready to launch that big time towards the April timeframe. That I really think is going to be a game changer for us because it's allowed us to relook at process, get even better, more standardized, but more importantly, bring in milestones, call to actions, and technology on recommendations, whether it be Gen AI or other types of way to get smart. So we're gonna get a lot better in terms of standardizing our processes, making them more efficient, bring intelligent through it using a product called Gainsight. But then as we get into Gen AI, we've got some of our own products called Joule that sits into our SAP system and brings information. My gosh, I'm looking at some of this stuff with our AI council. We've actually taken some of our top talent that have been interested in learning about AI. And we said, okay, help identify opportunities. Took 20 around the world. They came back with a ton of different ways where AI can help us. Some SAP products, some other external products in terms of creating content, in terms of translating content. We support 120 countries around the world. We're doing a lot of engagement in many languages. Translation is hard to do and could be expensive. AI is helping us do that. We're starting to get into looking at customer segmentation and come back with early alerts and warnings or prediction, if you will, of things that we should be able to do. We're then embarking on, hey, how does AI help us bring content together in terms of recommended best practices and other things to do. So we've got that angle happening, all to make the rep as efficient as possible. I don't think AI is going to replace. I think it supplements. You still got to have wickedly smart talent that knows how to use it. But then if I have to go present to a customer, help me create that presentation with the latest insights versus spending multiple hours trying to create it yourself. So there's an angle that we're going there. Another piece that we're launching is a lot around self-service, but making sure that it's smart. So I can recommend to a customer a certain set of features that they may be using or other features that they could use. But if I can drive self-service to a customer, they get answers to their questions. And if they can't understand or can't find the answers, then they can come back to us with a question. So kind of like a pooled concept of CSMs where the customer can go and go and go, hey, I need help. Well, don't just force them to self-service again to make them frustrated. Give an angle to come back, whether it be a chat or a phone. So we're working on all those different pieces, simplifying process, bringing content together, translating content, promoting self-service. We got a big year ahead of us as we get into Gainsight and then figure out how we escalate that. Our business is really growing. And the challenge that we have is we can't grow as much with people. So we got to get our team to be more productive and focus on the right things to provide a great experience.
Dynamic revenue growth leaders know that Emblaze is the leadership insights community for them.
As the world of sales is constantly evolving and constantly changing, I think it's even more critical to get together with people to understand how are they helping to solve some of the problems that our buyers have today.
We always find a lot of value in the partnerships that we're able to form with some of the other great organizations that are part of the team here. And personally, I love the opportunity to connect with my peer group outside of other organizations and learn from them and try to figure out if there's things that they're doing that we can pull into our organization and benefit from.
Go to emblazegrowth.com/join and start your free Insights membership. Take control of your revenue future today.
So again, I feel like I need an inhaler just to consume what you've all said, Tony, about what has to happen here. I'm still wondering now if I want this job. But one of the things I know that like the idea of getting a handoff with a customer having an expectation, then you implementing and trying to document and track that expectation's being met, often is manifest in like a business review.
Yeah.
How are business reviews part of your process? And how do you scale that? And maybe the tech helps.
Tech better help because we're in the we're in the process of trying to figure out how we redesign it because it takes a lot of time to create a business. You've got standard templates clearly, but to create those and bring that insight together takes a lot. It takes hours of effort. We've actually launched a pretty cool initiative towards the end of last year. Where we can actually start automating some of that content creation. Start getting the slides to a presentation, a standard framework book created. So the time that a CSM is spending is more on the insight and the value add. We're going to take that to the next level. That's where Gen AI, that's where a lot of the insights that come from a Gainsight type system, that's going to help us get us better and better and better. And in some cases, we're thinking that even for a medium to smaller customers, is there a way I can automate that business review on a quarterly basis? Right? And send it out to a customer to say, hey, here's what's happening. Here's some recommended capability that you could use that in some cases you may have already paid for that you're not using. That's what we're trying to bring together is we've got tens of thousands of customers that are driving amazing value from SAP software. We also have many customers that are new. How do we get them educated and ramped? Because if they're going to use multiple features, they're going to drive business value and they're going to renew. So the renewal, as I said earlier, that's going to happen if you use the product and drive capability. Now, if there's a way to do that in an automated fashion, we're walking a little bit. I wouldn't say, we're still walking. We're walking at a quick pace because we've done some automation in the PowerPoint slides, if you will, to create a customer business review every quarter. Now we're looking at are there other ways to enhance that and do that faster so it can reduce the time that a CSM has to do in creating and then spend more of that time on the value added. So it's a critical part because you need to show the demonstrated value every quarter, if not often. How do we make that as easy as possible so that you can free up the time for the CSM to do more of the value added things with customers?
For sure. And business reviews tend to be sort of like a commercial moment too. Like it's one thing to hopefully ensure the sense of positive momentum and really establish yourself as their preference and all that. But it's also a commercial opportunity. And that brings me to a question that I've been reading a lot about. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the algorithm in my LinkedIn just keeps pushing these things to me. But I keep seeing a lot about, I don't know, a debate between account management and CS. Like I accept that AE, new business, AM, existing business sort of exists in the, I'll say, hunter-farmer world.
Yeah.
And where does CS fit into this whole thing? But in particular, relative to the farmer account manager model, What do you guys have there, and how does it work together?
Yeah, and it's evolving. It is evolving. I'd say a couple of years ago it was completely separate, right? Drive quota for sales, drive upsell, cross-sell. Don't care about renewals. A couple of years ago, where, hey, the renewal is the CSM and the renewal center, right? You're seeing those blend together. Where everybody now, at least at SAP, is responsible for the customer, driving adoption and consumption across the board, which is fascinating to see. And you're seeing some really interesting relationships where an account manager and a strategic AE and the CSM are partnering, brought into, and actually what we often find, if an AE can bring a CSM earlier into the relationship with a customer and said, hey, I'm here with some of the transactional components. This person is going to help you in terms of making sure you have your implementation plan and you're driving success. And then what a powerful conversation to bring both in early. Right. And even when you start thinking about strategic planning, which now's the time of year as you kick the year off and you look for either bigger customers, even medium to smaller customers, you start to say, where is the potential? The partnership now between a CSM and an AE coming together, right? Working through and saying, hey, what's the best thing to do for that customer? Now, a part of that is making sure that whether it's a new feature that's implemented or a new module that's implemented, that's got to be successful. The customer's got to be in a good relationship, any issues resolved, on a path to driving value. If you're not doing that, it makes it a heck of a lot harder to upsell, cross-sell something else. So you're absolutely seeing those things come together on the bigger business and even to the medium-sized business. Now, as you get even to some of the smaller, it's partnerships, but we're doing almost everything digital, where you could do pipeline development to selling all through leveraging digital modalities. And then there's the transition to a CSM that's handling everything digitally. And the teams connected together. We've got teams all over the planet. One of our biggest centers in Barcelona, where you've got salespeople, pipeline people, post-sales, and even renewal on the same floor, not having to travel to a customer, right? And being there to foster that experience. So it's fascinating to see as the technology gets better and smarter. It's forcing the AEs and the CSMs to get better and smarter. And targeted, where do you use that people element to where some of the other tools that can help you support it? So there's blending. We have those conversations all the time. You're seeing comps aligned, compensation plans aligned, because they have to be, but there are different roles, right? And it's a different mindset from a selling hunter farmer to driving adoption and consumption.
You've had so many successes. I'm almost curious on the reverse. Have you ever implemented something that just hasn't worked? And how did you recover from it? Everyone always likes a good fail forward story. And I feel comfortable asking you.
We look to fail often, honestly. So, because then that's how you learn, right? And you try some different things. We are constantly going back and forth as generalist, specialist conversation. I had that 15 years ago on the sales side when you're building an inside sales. Do you focus on a specific product or do you focus on the whole portfolio? We constantly have a generalist, specialist conversation that we're going on. We try some things for a period of time. And if you look at it and it doesn't, you can always do one thing one time. If you need to do it many, many, many times and it's not getting better and getting more efficient, then you got to relook and say, hey, how do I get better? We had a certain framework for supporting one product when we built our digital scale team. And we never had the processes defined. And it was a certain product. And we just said, let's just start talking to customers. And we did. And that helped. But then the minute you go to a different type of product, we're like, that's not going to work. Because then I could have, how am I going to get efficient when you have thousands of customers that are coming in? So we had to step back and say, hey, what can we do from a process standpoint that can apply to the different products? So there's some level of consistency. And that's gotten us better. We've become more efficient and we've learned a lot. We're in an inflection point now as we're getting bigger and bigger and our solutions are getting more integrated, but they're also complicated, that we've got to relook at our processes and say, okay, what more can we do to scale with this funny little thing called Gen AI that's out there that's going to help us change things, but it doesn't change everything. So we're going to get that wrong. You try it in a couple different places. We tried some translation work and it was dreadful. We used the product like, hey, this is going to be cool. And we tried it. We're like, I have the luxury of having Japanese speaking and Spanish speaking people on the team. And they look at the presentation like, hey, we can't use this. That technology's gotten better, but you got to fail. You got to fail quickly and learn from it. And then use that as a learning opportunity to say, hey, what can we do differently? And at the beginning of the year now, we're looking at our processes and say, Gen AI is coming. It's here. We're using it for specific use cases. It's embedded in our software. Our customers are demanding it, and we're selling a lot of it because the capability is so powerful on an SAP system. We need to engage our customers differently so that they know how to leverage the software that's there. And then at the same time, Gen AI is with us in terms of recommending customers to talk to, recommending content. So we're going through all of that. This is going to be an inflection point for us this year. We'll make a ton of mistakes. I'm sure of that. And then the important one is just learn from it and then move to the next one, right? And then move to the next one and see as you're getting better and better each time that you move forward.
In the world of AI, I'm just going to say we aren't going to use the words failure or mistakes anymore. We're simply going to hallucinate. And then we'll be like, sorry, just a hallucination.
Right.
Well, let's move on to the next thing. Tony, that was awesome. And thanks for, we got to know you well enough in this conversation that Amanda could ask that question and you could confidently answer it because you'd shown so many successes in the previous 30 minutes. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Tony. And for those who are listening and you want to hear more from Tony, come join us at the Revenue Summit in April, where you're going to have a chance to hear Tony. And I have no doubt that he'll take some extra time to chat with you if you have any questions. So thanks for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe anywhere you're listening or watching this podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
I feel like we need another episode with Tony just to dissect and dive deeper into everything that he just said.
Yeah, it feels like the job description of a CS person. It cannot be contained in one single podcast. Exactly.
I kept hearing the same theme over and over again with everything that he was saying. I think I even mentioned it to him, right? Is this principle of discipline, Tim, what did you pull? What was your big takeaway from what Tony had to say about his team?
Yeah, the idea of discipline, having an established process, implementation, change management, adoption, a cadence for business reviews, like having that built and then tech enabled and then scalable is so critical. This can't be just sort of an ad hoc thing. This is a serious discipline and with material outcomes attached to it. And it's about time that this entered that same level of professional development that sales has always had. It's like, oh my gosh, we got to do this for our salespeople, do that, and put all of these things in place. And he basically said it. We're now bringing all of those same operational sort of rigors and disciplines to the CS side because we recognize it's the other half and then some of the revenue stream.
Yeah. I'm excited to have Tony come back and join us, maybe in a few months after they've implemented Gainsight and seen the success and from his teams. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Emblazers. Make sure that you like and subscribe wherever you are listening or watching this show. And we'll see you next time.